the city of Leosville never slept. It was a place where dreams were either made or crushed, where power and money ruled, and where people fought every day to survive. In the heart of the city stood Johnson Towers, a Sleck glass, walled skyscraper that reflected the bright lights of Leosville.it belonged to Lawrence Johnson, the most powerful real estate mogul in the city. He was known for his sharp business mind, his cold heart, and his belief that love was nothing but a distraction. Lawrence had everything: wealth, power, and respect, but one thing he had never wanted was emotional attachment. To him, relationships were weak spots, and he had no patience for them. On the other side of town, in a much smaller office, Joy Daniel was by sketching designs for a new project. She had always dreamed of owning her own interior design company, but for now, she worked for someone else. It was not easy, but she was determined to make a name for herself. Joy was nothing like Lawrence. Where he was cold, she was warm. Where he believed in control, she believed in fate. She had been hurt before, but she still believed in love. That night, her boss had invited her to a high-profile business event. It was her first time attending such a grand gathering, and she wanted to make a good impression. She wore a simple but elegant black dress, her natural beauty shining through without effort. The business event was held at the Grand Royale Hotel, one of the most luxurious places in the city. The hall was filled with men in expensive suits, women in shimmering gowns, and the air carried the scent of money and power. Joy felt out of place. She was not from this world of billionaires and tycoons, but she reminded herself that she belonged anywhere her dreams took her. That was when she saw him, Lawrence Johnson, tall, broad-shouldered, and impossibly handsome. In his tailored suit, he had a presence that made everyone turn, but his eyes were cold, unreadable, like a man who carried the world on his shoulders, but never let anyone close enough to share the weight. Joy had always admired him for years. She had filled his success, reading about him in business magazines, watching his interview, dreaming of one day shaking his hand. She had told herself that if she ever met him, she would act professional, be composed, and impress him with her knowledge. But when their eyes met across the crowded hall, all of that disappeared. It was just a glance as first. But then Lawrence approached. She had no idea why the Lawrence Johnson was talking to her. Maybe he was just being polite. Maybe he was bored. But for some reason, the most powerful man in the room was paying attention to her. He asked about her work. She spoke with passion about interior design, about how spaces could tell stories, about how she wanted to create something lasting. He listened, but his eyes were a little hazy, his words slightly slurred. It was clear he had been drinking. One drink led to another. One conversation led to laughter, and before they knew it, they were alone in a hotel suite upstairs. Joy should have walked away. She knew he was drunk. She knew she should have left him in his room and gone home. But this was Lawrence Johnson, the man she had admired for years, the man she had dreamed about, and when he pulled her close, whispering words she knew he wouldn't even remember in the morning, she forgot everything. Her home training, her morals, her sense of caution. She willingly gave him her virginity. She wanted to believe it meant something, that maybe, just maybe, he saw her as different. But deep inside, a small voice told her this was a mistake. The sunlight creeping through the curtains felt harsh. Joy turned in bed, expecting to see Lawrence next to her, but the space was empty. He was gone. She sat up, her heart pounding. Maybe he had just stepped out. Maybe he would come back. But then her eyes fell on 3 thick bundles of cash on the nightstand. Her breath caught in her throat. She started at the money, her hands shaking. And then it hit her. He thought she was just a woman who had been arranged for his pleasure. Tears filled her eyes as the truth sank in. He probably wouldn't even remember her. To him, she wasn't Joy Daniel. She wasn't the young woman who had admires him, who had given him something priceless. She was just another woman in his bed. A forgettable night. A cheap fling. Joy clutched the sheets. silent tears rolling down her cheeks. She felt like a fool, like a cheap hoe. She had never felt so humiliated in her life, and as she got dressed, she promised herself she would never make that mistake again. Little did she know, that night had left her with something far more lasting than just a broke heart. Days turned into weeks, but Joy couldn't forget that night. Not because of the pain, not because of the humiliation, but because something was changing inside her. She had been feeling strange. Tired all the time, her appetite shifting, and her unexpectedly. At first, she thought it was stress, but when she missed her period, a cold fear crept into her heart. On evening, after work, she bought a pregnancy test. She sat on the tiny bathroom floor of her apartment, staring at the small white stick in her trembling hands. Her heart pounded as she waited for the result, each second feeling like an eternity.